So one of the questions that I think comes up a lot when you start talking about protocols and why, there's a business model question that I think a lot of people jump to fairly quickly, which is like, all right, if this is a protocol and it's open, how do I, as the creator and maybe not maintainer of the protocol, how do I turn that into a business? And how it's a different paradigm. I think it's one of the aspects. I mean, there's a lot of different paradigms in Web3 or crypto in general. That's one of them. I think is like these your Avalanche, your Solana, your whatever it is. Like, how are these organizations? They're creating a tremendous amount of value in theory if you get adoption with them. But how does that unlock value for them, for their investors, that type of thing?
Yeah, this is where it might take a bit to unpack some of this, but this is one of the, to me, really fun things about the space. One way to view crypto and blockchains is sort of the study of incentive design and trying to coordinate large groups of people. And it's fascinating. There's all sorts of game theory. There's all that involved in it. But you hit on the really important part of it, which is, why would anyone create any of these things? And so I'll try to unpack it. Just suffice to say that with the warning is it's a little bit complicated, but we can kind of go through. If anyone wants to kind of look at what the birth of one of these things looks like, there's a tremendous book called The Infinite Machine. It's about the history of Ethereum and just sort of the ethos behind it, how it got started, how is this sort of fledgling thing. I really recommend that book for anyone looking at this space. Infinite Machine is fantastic. But kind of going through it, the way that it worked was they had this idea for Ethereum, which was this concept of smart contracts, or these essentially scripts that could be run on their own. And so you could have said, okay, great. I will take a cut of the fees whenever anyone wants to pay to run these scripts or something like that. But the company didn't cut themselves in that way. Instead, they had this role you could play. And the role you could play was called a miner, which kind of is sort of a weird thing to call it, but suffice to say, there's a role where people are actually paid to execute these scripts. And so the company is not, taking a cut of that for themselves. In fact, there is no company. It's just called the Ethereum Foundation. So people who are creating the code are separate from the people who are sort of taking a fee. But there is a role, and they could go and do that as well. And so with this small example, I won't go into more details unless you want to go into it later. But like, suffice to say, usually people are creating roles, they're designing incentives. And then there's a few ways that the people who are creating it could sort of monetize their efforts. One is to go play that role themselves. They could be a miner. In this case, I don't think the Ethereum Foundation did that. The other is you could, if there is a token used to coordinate the network, you could give yourself a chunk of it. This is called a pre-mine. There's good pre-mines and bad ones, and depending on how much you give yourself. So like the first approximation is, are you going to earn into this network, or are you going to sort of give yourself a pre-cut and sort of give enough to of people that they will participate? But that's the thing there is like, I'm not really like, one of those looks sort of like equity, and one of those looks sort of like revenue. One you earn over time through effort, that's the mining, and one is sort of like just something you have and you hope it appreciates in value.
Yep. Yeah. And so as you get more so you stand up a protocol, the protocol has a token, you give yourself or otherwise earn a percentage of the token. That token is used that is kind of how people transact on the protocol. And you either are giving yourself a portion of those tokens in hopes that as the protocol gains adoption, those become more valuable, or you basically are taking a cut of each transaction in the form of that token. But you're doing it, you're following the same rules that every other miner or participant is.
You're providing work in return for it. You're not just getting sort of like a rake or whatever you might want to call it.